WNST crying and losing and all the back stuff that happens on a Sunday night when you get on a plane, and a lot of frustrated Baltimore Ravens, but they need to dust this thing off out in Owings Mills and move on, as they were talking about after the game, as John Harbaugh talked about. 3 games ahead, win all 3 games, and you get a chance to come back to Pittsburgh or New England and play. This guy has been subjected to a lot of misery. I've known him for the better part of a quarter of a century now, ever since the Ravens moved here to Baltimore. He was covering the Browns of Art Modell and Bill Belichick back in the 1990s. He is a longtime Browns, Cavs, and Indians reporter for the News Herald and Morning Journal out in Willoughby. We welcome back one of our defending champions from Cleveland. We welcome Jeff Schudel back. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at JSProInsider on Twitter. Jeff, I mean, you and I have been at this a long time. I mean, at some point, there'll be a better version of the Browns. I think maybe we had that a couple years ago when Pettin had their team pointed in the right direction for a minute and a half. But and we were all scoreboard watching on Sunday. But you say, well, they're going to win one of these. You got to make sure it's not you. Jeff, are they going to win one of these?
Well, I'll tell you, Nestor, I think their best chance is to beat the Bears on Christmas Eve, which would be ironic because that was the date they won their only game last year.
Maybe there's something mystical. Maybe Santa comes down and spring. I don't know, but certainly the game was sitting there on Sunday. What kind of version of the Browns are we seeing right now? Certainly the Josh Gordon thing is a difference maker from their perspective, and certainly it was for the Green Bay Packers early in the game, right?
Well, it is. He is a difference maker, and of course he was not. He was suspended early in the season when the Browns played the Ravens. And I will tell you this, that when you saw, of course, what the way Ben Roethlisberger carved up that Baltimore secondary on Sunday night, and when you see if Gordon could do anything, I mean, he's no Antonio Brown, but as you saw in that game, if DeShone Kizer and Gordon could do anything close to that, the Browns really could do something to the Ravens. So John Harbaugh is not going to let his team look past the Browns, as bad as the Browns' record is.
Well, I mean, and we'll get through all these players and stuff, but let's start at the top and what's going on with Jimmy Haslam and where the state of the franchise is at this point. You've been at this a long time. I mean, we haven't talked in a while, Jeff. Fill me in. You know, where are the Browns right now? If I had been off on planet Krypton and came down here after 25 years, or well, it's 18 years of seeing this one since '99, right? 19 years of seeing this. You've witnessed all of this. Is it any better than it's? I mean, are they any closer to having some players? I mean, there was a period of time where, there were Alex Macks and there were Joe Haydens and there were Joe Thomases and there was, Gibson. I mean, there were some good players there 2-3 years ago that are all gone now by and large. And Joe Thomas can be added to that at this point. But what's in the cupboard there for whatever this is going to be under the new administration that they jettisoned last week?
Well, that's really a good question because of course, Myles Garrett, the first overall pick, he'll certainly survive this regime change. But after there's not a lot because Corey Coleman, the first receiver taken in the 2016 draft, he's okay, but he's really not. Although he had a pretty good game against the Packers, so he'll survive. And Gordon will be back. Joel Bitonio, the left guard, he's a good player. The interior of their line is strong. Center J.C. Treader and Kevin Zeitler, the right guard, the Ravens are familiar with him from his days with the Bengals. But the secondary isn't very good. The Browns secondary isn't very good, so I could see a lot of changes there. They have 13 picks in the next draft, 5 in the first 2 rounds. So, and it looks like they'll have the first pick again because the only team close to them is the Giants at 2-11. So they have a lot of cap room on this, a lot of cap room to spend. So they can turn this around. I think by 2022, 2019, I think the Browns could be contenders.
Some thoughts about where Hugh is in all of this is I mean, obviously the Sashi Brown, the shakeup, the Moneyball stuff that was going on there. I don't know that a lot of people bought into it. I think inside football circles, it was scoffed at by a lot of the old school people. And now that the team is 0-13 as we enter Cleveland this week and get on a plane to come out there, I would say it was a failed experiment. Would you agree with that?
Here's a problem. The theory wasn't bad, but what was bad is that the players that they did draft and the players they let go through free agency, as you mentioned, Alex Mack, they cut Joe Hayden, they let Schwartz go, their right tackle, and so that's why it failed. Not so much that they accumulate, and it was bad enough that you pass on Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson. But if they'd have garnered anything from that, then it wouldn't be as much of a disaster. But it is a disaster because they let too many good players go, and didn't make good draft picks. So that's why they're in this mess.
Well, and Haslam might go to jail at the top of all of this, right? Like there's a real mess going on with the ownership.
Let's not go down that road. I am not touching that trial. And to be honest with you, I haven't followed it closely enough, so I am not going down that road.
But as far as the owner picking the people that are involved in running the place, at some point, once you're 3-4 administrations into this thing, and I know it gets laid at Hugh Jackson's feet, right? Like you said, a change in administration. It feels like he's going to survive this without winning, right? Like it feels like he'll be the coach next year, at least at this point.
Well, when he fired Sashi Brown and hired John Dorsey as general manager last week, he said that Hugh Jackson will be back for 2018, and that is kind of a head scratcher when you consider that now Hugh Jackson is 1-28 as a head coach. I mean, obviously can't get much worse than that, and you had to endorse him. The thing of it is, though, Nestor, the players do play hard. They haven't checked out, and you've seen what happens when they do check out, like they did on Ben McAdoo in New York.
Well, the weirdest thing is we've gotten our asses kicked this year, a couple of times, quite frankly, and a lot of teams have, and we've shut teams out this year and made them look bad. I don't know that the Browns have gone out on any given week this year. Maybe the Bengals game in Week 4, they lost 31-7, but by and large, this has been a very representative effort most weeks where you look up at halftime and at least they have a chance to win. I think it's hard to go 0-13. It's hard for everybody, but I also think it's kind of hard to be that unlucky and that bad down the stretch and blowing a 2-touchdown lead against the Packers. It feels sort of inevitable, and they always give the Ravens a hard time out there, but this is not... as an 0-13 team, this is not a team that's been blown out 5 or 6 times. This is a team that's been in every football game.
Well, you're right, and even against the Packers, they were leading 21-7 in the fourth quarter, and then they blew it. They have 2 touchdowns in the fourth and lost in overtime. So, I mean, they're 0-13, but it is frustrating because they're probably the best 0-13 in NFL history.
Well, you've watched all of this and all these players and have seen all these quarterbacks come through, and I know Don Banks wrote a piece this week. I'm going to have him on to talk about all the quarterbacks that have been through there. But where are you with DeShone Kizer at this point and what you're seeing from him to give some sort of hope that 2-3 years from now he'll still be the quarterback there and be a blossoming guy? Do you see that at all, Jeff?
Well, I think they're going to draft a quarterback with the first pick, no matter how he plays in these last 3 games. And that Green Bay game is a perfect example, Nestor. Here he's playing his best game of the year, and then in overtime, he threw a pass a 9th grader would never throw. He's fallen backward. Clay Matthews hits his arm, and the ball goes sailing up in the air and is intercepted, and then the Packers turn that into a touchdown, the game-winning touchdown. So 5 plays later. So he makes some bad decisions, and what is this guy seeing? What's he thinking? against Jacksonville, he turned the ball over on each of his last 3 possessions.
He is just. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Say that again.
And so you can't do that. And the week before the Packers, he did the same thing. It was his last 2 possessions. So you just can't make those plays, Nestor, and be the starting quarterback.
Jeff Schudel has been our friend for a quarter of a century. He covers all things Cleveland sports, Browns, Cavs, Indians, out at the Willoughby News Herald and the Morning Journal. You can find him at news-herald.com, as well as out on Twitter at JS Pro Insider, out on Twitter. This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at GNA Coney Island Hot Dogs up in Highlandtown. The best hot dogs in the world are at GNA Restaurant. Stop by and see Andy for the holidays. Make sure you get some French fries and that tasty gravy up there as well. Also brought to you by our friends at Coppin State University. We are your home for Eagles basketball this winter. Juan Dixon and Dwayne Burrows joining us here. You can find all of the information now that they're playing some home games to get this MEAC thing going here during the holidays at CoppinStateSports.com. Jeff Schudel, our guest from the Cleveland area as we prepare for our trip out there. What do you make of the Steelers and the Ravens? You got a chance to watch a little bit of that on Sunday night. It certainly is always interesting when they get together. I don't know that we're ever going to see that kind of game, that sort of excitement at 39-38 at the end and blown leads by the Ravens, but certainly the Steelers and Roethlisberger and everything they've rallied around with Shazier, this is going to be a big week for them taking on the New England Patriots as well.
Yes, it is, and I love watching those games. And even the Bengals and Steelers the week before. I mean, those teams, those are real rivals. The Browns call the Ravens rivals. They call the Steelers rivals. But in order to be a rival, you should win once in a while. But, I mean, that Steelers-Ravens game was very entertaining. And I just didn't know who was going to win that game until the very end. And I thought it was a very strange ending. After the Flacco fumbles that ball out of bounds, and it seemed like the Ravens thought they had 6 seconds left, and here they're huddling, and the clock's running down, and no one seemed to realize it. So what did you think of that?
I thought that the Ravens were a little unprepared at the end, and I thought Harbaugh and Flacco both pretty much said that on the It doesn't happen often. It certainly doesn't happen at the end of the game, and they were unaware and didn't get a playoff. And Harbaugh sort of bristled and said, that wasn't the reason we lost. I would agree with that, but you'd like to at least execute it and get a playoff there at the end, right?
Right, and it's too bad that Macklin wasn't in bounds on that play there on the sideline, because that would have been very interesting.
Well, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there at the end, one way or another, and certainly stopping Ben Roethlisberger and not getting a pass rush, which was really the problem for me on Sunday night. If you don't get the Roethlisberger, you're going to pay. You can't give him time to sit around there and let the talent of those wide receivers and even Bell coming out of the backfield run around. The tight ends ate the Ravens' lunch across the middle, and they were the difference in the game as much as Antonio Brown. We knew he was special coming in. We didn't see tight ends, and we didn't see a 506-yard, 66-pass effort from Roethlisberger. We'll never see that again.
No, that was kind of surprising to me because Le'Veon Bell, he just overpowers people the way he runs, and so I thought he would get the ball more because it was a tight game, as high scoring as it was. There was never any one team had to overcome a 21-point deficit. So I mean, maybe the Browns can hope that the Steelers beat up the Ravens, but I don't think that should be their game plan.
All right, we got a couple of big weeks starting in Cleveland. He is Jeff Schudel. You can find him at JS Pro Insider out on Twitter. Last thing for you, Jeff, because you are the long-struggling Clevelander who was pining for parades and all that stuff. We came close with the Indians years ago and all the cardiac kids and all that stuff. This has been a weird time for Cleveland sports as I come in there this week, right? Indians and the Cavaliers sort of sitting on top of the world with opportunities to win. The Cavs have delivered a championship. Even the Calder Cup champions have been out there, as I see on your Twitter, with that Calder Cup that we brought here to Baltimore one time many, many moons ago as well. But for Cleveland sports, it's great. But then there's the Browns doing sort of the unthinkable in 20 years into this thing and being as bad as they've ever been. It is a little weird, but at least the Cleveland people probably turned their attention to the Indians and certainly the Cavaliers over the last 10 years, right?
Well, you're right about that, and Now I think the crowd Sunday in Cleveland might be pretty good because the Ravens, they seem to travel well, at least when the game is here. So you might see some fans in the stands, but attendance has been down. The Jacksonville game, for example, you could buy a ticket for $6 on StubHub. So that tells you where the fans' interest is right now with the Browns. But you know what it is, Nestor? I mean, next year people get excited, at least for the start of the year, I think, with a good draft. And so the real diehards never give up here.
Jeff, always a pleasure. Hope to see you on Sunday for the holidays, along with all my other Cleveland Mafia out there in the media. We've been at this thing for a couple of decades now. It's always fun having you on and chatting you guys up. And, I mean, I guess I'm sorry your team's 0-13, but you're in the way this week. You know, I mean, we got to win this game here.
All right. Well, I can't say good luck to the Ravens, but I look forward to seeing you here in a couple of days.
Always a pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for coming on, pal.
Bye-bye.
You got it, Jeff Schudel, JS Pro Insider, out on Twitter and at the Willoughby News Herald in the Morning Journal. You can find him at news-herald.com. He's been doing it forever. No one knows more about Cleveland sports than Jeff Schudel. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. digitally every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, and there's no better time than 2018 to take advantage of that. Learn more, get some inspiration at Planet of Triumphs. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And hey, don't forget, if you're banding about here for the holidays, toss us over a note, say hello, and let's get ready for 2018 and hopefully a playoff berth around here. Any breaking news out of the owners' meetings and the winter gathering that they put together down there in Orlando? All is quiet with Dan Duquette, but if there is breaking news, you'll get that first on our WNST text service. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5. I'm hoping to join him as well as we get ready for this trip out to the land of Cleve. Nasty at WNST.net is the way to find me. We are WNST.net, AM 1570. And WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.